So, good afternoon, all of you.
Good afternoon.
So, can you see the slide peritoneum on the screen? Ritika?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. So, actually, there are some more points which are actually very, very important. Like there are some recesses and also subdiaphragmatic, and some recesses are there which are, and along with applied aspects which have to be covered in peritoneum. So, we will discuss it today. Okay. So, peritoneum we have done pretty well. So now what are the various aspects that I'm not going to repeat, like I have told you very well, like the parietal peritoneum, whatever is covered, I am just going to skip, and whatever has not yet covered, we are going to elaborate on it. Okay. So parietal layer, I told you it was lining the abdominal wall. It is derived from somatopleuric layer, because of which it is pain sensitive. This everything is covered. Visceral layer is the one which is lining inside. Points which are not covered, I am going to cover now. So male closed sac, female open sac, epiploic foramen, everything is covered in my previous lectures. Retroperitoneal also I told you, which is lying behind the peritoneum. So what is this fold of peritoneum you are finding here? This is mesentery. Okay. Are you finding like coils of small intestine here, Ritika?
Yes, ma'am.
So all these coils of small intestines are suspended from the posterior abdominal wall by means of fan-shaped fold of peritoneum, that is mesentery. Now if you just observe this mesentery, can you find like distribution of blood vessels within the mesentery? What may be the name of blood vessel which is supplying mid-gut?
Superior mesenteric artery.
Very good, superior mesenteric artery. Okay, so we will continue like see whatever points are not covered, I am going to elaborate on that. I told you. See, mesentery I will take in my another PowerPoint now, but few pictures are very good here. So I told you always we use the prefix meso in order to represent the fold of peritoneum. If it is small intestine, it is mesentery, and if it is colon, we use the word mesocolon. Isn't it? For stomach, we use the word omentum, and of course many ligaments we found with liver. So you can see this is all fan-shaped fold of peritoneum. Okay, are you finding distribution of fat? Okay, this is the coil of small intestine, and within the small intestine, can you see the distribution of fat and also blood vessels, Lokesh? Yes. So all these, so all these are nothing but the branches of superior mesenteric artery which are distributed. Okay. So then in the colon, we know we have transverse mesocolon. See, this transverse mesocolon is continuing as mesentery. After mesentery, the further continuation, we call it a sigmoid mesocolon. Okay. So then if you just lift this appendix, and if you just see, this is the meso appendix. This also we have discussed already. Whatever we have discussed, I am not going to elaborate again. So, but many points are there which need further elaboration. This particular slides I will tell you when we do embryology exclusively. This vertical disposition also we have finished. But see, pictures are so good. I just want to see. From where did we start the reflection of peritoneum? From the umbilicus. What was the name of the ligament which was continuing from the umbilicus like this to continue as falciform ligament?
Ligamentum teres.
Ligamentum teres, very good. So ligamentum teres, I told you it is nothing but obliterated umbilical vein, isn't it? Now coming to falciform ligament, it is sickle shaped fold of peritoneum which is running between the right and left lobes of the liver, and you can see it is continuing under the surface of the diaphragm like which ligament? What is the name of this ligament we have covered? This clarity I wanted to give.
Falciform ligament.
Falciform ligament is now, see, this is left lobe of the liver, this is right lobe of the liver. You are lifting it, it looks like a sickle. Sickle in the sense what you use for cutting a grass. Sickle cell anemia, the shape of RBC changes to sickle, like that. So this is the sickle shaped fold. If you observe, this fold is moving superiorly, and you can see it is going under the surface of the diaphragm to come downwards again to cover the lobes of the liver. I want this point to be understood very clearly. Falciform ligament is moving under the surface of the diaphragm. And what is the name of this continuation? You call it as coronary ligament. Okay, we have discussed coronary ligament. Okay, see this is our diaphragm, and if you tear the diaphragm, you are finding the coronary ligament. That means the falciform ligament is going up and it is covering the under surface of diaphragm. And then you see, suppose this is liver, the coronary ligament comes anteriorly like this and then goes on the visceral surface to go behind. Okay, see here, I will take a small area. So suppose the falciform ligament is now going up like this. Okay, that is covering the under surface of the diaphragm. Then again it folds downwards to cover the liver lobes, and then it goes on the inferior aspect of the liver. Inferior aspect of the liver. You see, from the under surface of the diaphragm, the coronary ligament is reflected on superior surface. This is the right lobe of the liver, forming the upper layer of coronary ligament. I'll show you in the next picture. Now see here, suppose this is like the continuation of this, the upper surface, it is coming on the inferior surface, visceral surface. Now it is continuing its journey behind. It started like this, covering the anterior surface, visceral surface, and then came behind. Okay, so this is behind, you are finding this is. Okay, so that means it is, where are we finding? It is descending from superior surface of the liver to the anterior surface of the liver, then inferior surface of the liver, then it is now becoming the inferior layer of coronary ligament. That means to start with, you have used it as superior layer of coronary ligament. Okay, once it has, I'll take you to the previous picture. See, it is superior surface, then this coronary ligament covers the anterior surface, then it covers the inferior or the visceral surface of liver. That means it continues its journey and it comes like this. Okay, so this is the superior layer of coronary ligament. This is the inferior layer of coronary ligament. Between the two layers of coronary ligament, we are not finding any peritoneal covering. What is the name of this area where we do not have any peritoneal covering?
Area.
Very good, bare area of liver. Okay, same point is written. From posterior part of inferior surface of peritoneum reflected on to the front. That means here, behind the right lobe of the liver, we have right kidney and also right suprarenal gland. That means when it goes like that, the kidney becomes retroperitoneal, suprarenal gland also becomes retroperitoneal. It just comes and gets reflected like this. Okay, that is. So now we know the margins of this coronary, we call it as right triangular and left triangular ligament, which I already told you. This doesn't need any sort of further elaboration. Okay, this is bare area. Okay, now see here further. So this pouch is actually very, very important. Hepatorenal pouch or Morrison's pouch. This I told you as a very small point there. So between the visceral surface of the liver and anterior surface of the right kidney, you are finding one pouch that is nothing but the hepatorenal pouch. This gutter I will elaborate with the help of other diagrams. Okay, these pictures are very, very good, and you are finding this area where the liver's right lobe is lifted and you are finding the anterior surface of right kidney, and this outline is nothing but the Morrison's pouch or hepatorenal pouch. Okay, we know already this is lesser omentum, this is the space for epiploic foramen, these are VAD structures. Okay, portal vein, hepatic artery, bile duct. Okay, now we have further journey. If you observe, see there, you see what is this colon? I told you yesterday, ascending colon. What is this colon which is cut? This is transverse colon. What is this colon we have studied yesterday? Descending colon. So on either side of this colon, Now, when you see towards the medial aspect of this ascending colon, or if you lift, when you go to the cadaver and when you try to lift this long ascending colon loop, you lift it. Suppose this is colon. Under surface of the colon, you will have empty space, which are actually called as gutters. Okay, because it is found on the right side, you call it as right paracolic gutter. Similarly, when you lift the left left colon, that means descending colon, below the descending colon also you will have so much of empty space, which is called as left paracolic gutter. Okay, if you just intestines are quite big, and when you explore the abdomen, when you lift it so nicely, you will see. Okay, like below the ascending colon you will see right paracolic gutter, and below the descending colon we will see the left paracolic gutter. And this area between the right kidney, anterior surface of the right kidney and right lobe of the liver, we call it as hepatorenal pouch or Morrison's pouch. Okay, so this is lesser omentum. Already I have explained so much. Okay, this is lesser omentum. I'm going to skip. Epiploic foramen also, boundaries also we have seen very well, in fact, isn't it? Thickenings also we have done. So greater omentum. Few things which are not covered in my previous lectures, I'm just going to concentrate now. See, mesentery. How is the mesentery? I told you it is fan-shaped fold of peritoneum, which is suspending the coils of jejunum and ileum from the posterior abdominal wall. The maximum breadth will be towards the center, which will be 20 centimeters. Okay, and of course it will have attached margin and free margin. Okay, so this is the root of mesentery, where it is attached to the posterior abdominal wall, and which will be measuring around 15 centimeters. Free margin of mesentery is freely moving with the coils of small intestines, which is around 6 meters. And the maximum breadth is towards the middle. I said that is also measuring 15 centimeters. Okay, so this is the attached margin. And wherever it is attached along the coils of small intestines, which I told you as long as 5 meters, that is the free margin. Okay, this is representing the attached margin. Okay, so from where till where it is extending from the duodenojejunal flexure, which is extending at the level of L2 to the right sacroiliac joint. This point is the right iliac fossa, no, that area, 9 regions of the abdomen. Okay, from here till here. Okay, that means this point is corresponding to the ileocecal junction or upper end of the right sacroiliac joint. So this is all attached border of root of mesentery. Whatever is there which is freely floating along. What is the length of small intestine, Lokesh? If you uncoil this and if you measure these coils, jejunal and ileal coils, how much are they measuring?
5 meters.
Yeah, very good, 5 to 6 meters. So obviously the free margin of the mesentery is also same length. Okay, it is around 6 meters. Okay, now see here, the root of mesentery is this complete black line what you are seeing. So along this black line, what are we finding? See, this is the starting point. It is, that means root of mesentery is crossing all these structures one by one. The first point is written as this point, duodenojejunal flexure. Second point we are finding, we know from this yesterday's lecture that this is the third part of duodenum. Okay, and then it is crossing, what is the name of this structure? Abdominal aorta. It is also crossing this vein adjacent to abdominal aorta. We find inferior vena cava. It is also crossing this structure which is coming from right kidney. You call it as right ureter. We know from yesterday's lecture, right ureter is actually running over right psoas major muscle. Finally, the attached margin is coming to this point, which is right sacroiliac joint. Okay, right sacroiliac joint. So did you understand? Where is the what are the structures crossed by the root of the mesentery? So duodenojejunal flexure, third part of the duodenum. Now, can you name these blood vessels? In fact, I have named. What is the artery supplying the midgut derivatives?
Superior mesenteric
Superior
artery.
mesenteric.
Very good, Lokesh. Superior mesenteric artery. Actually, it is crossing superior mesenteric artery, which are crossing the third part of the duodenum, then abdominal aorta, then inferior vena cava, right ureter, right psoas major,
Right psoas major.
and right sacroiliac joints. All these are the structures which are crossed by which part of the mesentery? Attached. That is the root of the
Of the mesentery.
root of the mesentery. Okay. Now, distribution of the fat in the mesentery, most, see, the gravity is most towards the lower part, no? So, the fat will be more towards the lower part, okay, from the root to the intestinal border. See, this is the intestinal border, okay, then. So, now if you observe, this picture is actually very important in order to understand these two structures. Okay, what are these two structures we will have? So these are actually, this is second part of the small intestine is jejunum, third part of the small intestine is ileum, DJI.
Ileum.
Okay, so this is jejunum and this is ileum. So in the jejunum, what are the blood vessels which is supplying the jejunum and ileum? Superior mesenteric artery
Superior
branches.
mesenteric artery. Yes.
Yeah. So can you see these branches? These are all straight arteries which are moving towards the jejunum. Whenever any structure is straight in anatomy, what is the word we use? What is this coming on the screen? I only read. Okay. So this is actually vasa recta. Okay. Vasa recta. Vasa recta. Okay, that means straight arteries. So here actually these are actually called as arterial arcades. Are you finding hexagonal structures here? So these hexagonal structures are actually called as arterial arcades. Okay, so arterial arcades are less in case of jejunum and arterial arcades are more in case of ileum. Is it clear, Lokesh?
Yes, ma'am.
ఇవి హెక్సాగోన్స్ కనిపిస్తున్నాయి కదా ఏ ఓకే సో దట్ మీన్స్ బ్రాంచింగ్ ప్యాటర్న్ ఈస్ మోర్ టువర్డ్స్ ది ileum when you compare with the jejunum, and vasa recta means the straight vessels. The straight vessels length is more in jejunum or ileum? This is the length for vasa recta in ileum. This is the length of vasa recta in jejunum. Okay, as Lokesh is telling, vasa recta length is more in jejunum when you compare with ileum. Okay, and whatever, so when you go to dissection hall, when you try to pass the light from behind, you will see the light will be passing from these windows. So whatever hexagonal areas are here, okay, these are actually called as windows, translucent areas. Okay, so these are fat-free areas where light can freely pass. When you just switch on your mobile light and try to pass the light, you will see these translucent areas which are actually called as windows. Okay, so that means why are we discussing all these things? Because we should also know the differences between jejunum and ileum when we continue with the small intestine. Duodenum we have finished, jejunum, ileum still we have to do. So distribution of fat is more towards the lower part, okay, from the root to the intestinal border. Okay, near the intestinal border you are finding oval, circular, fat free, translucent areas. Okay, now we know contents of the superior, like mesentery. What are the distributing blood vessels we are finding? Superior mesenteric artery. To be more specific, the branches of superior mesenteric artery will be MRI, middle colic, right colic, ileocolic. These are jejunum, no? That's why jejunal branches. This is ileal coils. That's why ileal. Okay, because they are found here, I'm telling you. Okay, anyhow, we are going to elaborate this artery in our next classes. Okay, so contents of mesentery are, you are finding jejunal and ileal branches of superior mesenteric artery. Okay, then we also find so much of nerve plexuses, lymphatics, round nodes or lymph nodes, and lot of fat in the mesentery. Okay, so this picture was there in my previous PowerPoint also. Now I see, if you lift this descending colon, you can pass your entire hand below the descending colon. That's what is called as left paracolic gutter. Towards right side, we have right paracolic gutter, and towards left side, we have left paracolic gutter. So this whole thing is mesentery, which you have lifted. This becomes the attached margin along the posterior abdominal wall. This is all fat, and this is the free margin, which is moving across the coils of small intestine. Okay, that is the jejunum and ileum. Okay. So these ligaments also I told you, things which I could not, horizontal disposition is not that important. Sigmoid mesocolon also elaborated. Difference in the male and female. In the male, I told you it is closed sac peritoneum, whereas in females it is open sac. Okay, this picture is actually important. See here. So we know this is because appendix is visible here. First of all, let's understand this picture. So vertebra is seen here. That means this is posterior aspect. What is the name of this muscle in the anterior abdominal wall? Lokesh?
External oblique.
This was external oblique, beta. Below skin and
Yes,
all.
ma'am.
In the middle.
Rectus. Rectus out.
Very good. Rectus abdominis. This is right rectus, left rectus. Okay. Immediately behind pubic symphysis, you will find one bag. No. What is the name of this bag?
Bladder. Urinary bladder.
Very good. Urinary bladder. Okay. Your understanding. Nice. Very good. So this is, what is the name of this structure? You have taken the picture from above. This is the pelvic cavity, and the picture has been taken from above. Okay, then what is the name of this structure you are finding?
Ascending.
Very good. Ascending colon. Yeah, obviously. Very good. Because appendix is here, you can easily make out ascending colon. What may be this then?
Descending colon.
Very good. Descending colon. Then what is this?
Sigmoid.
Excellent. Sigmoid. Then what is this?
A rectum.
Rectum. Is it male pelvis or female pelvis?
It is female.
Is it male pelvis or female pelvis?
Female.
No, Lokesh. You think for yourself. See, this is urinary bladder. Immediately behind urinary bladder, you are finding rectum anal canal, no? Are we finding uterus in the middle?
Okay. Male.
Male. It is male pelvic area. Okay. Lower down. Okay. What is the name of this blood vessel here?
Aorta.
Very good. This one?
Inferior vena.
Excellent. Very good. Very good. This will be psoas major muscle. Okay. Okay. Now see. What details I want to give you from this picture is, on either side of urinary bladder, the peritoneal cavity is showing the fossae, which are called as paravesical fossae. Paravesical fossae. On either side of the rectum also, you are finding the empty spaces, which are called as pararectal. Para means on either side. Suppose this is rectum. Here's free space, here free space. Then you call it as pararectal fossae. Then on either side of urinary bladder also, here also one empty space, then you call it as paravesical fossae. This is what I wanted to tell you. Orientation of picture is clear. Skin, superficial fascia in the abdomen, just below which we have external oblique, internal oblique, transversus abdominis, fascia transversalis, then peritoneum. Okay. We know the layers of this aponeurosis of this oblique muscles only will form rectus sheath, enclosing rectus abdominis muscle, which I have given very clear explanation in my previous lectures. Okay. See, now is this a female? It's written here. Female or male? Female.
Female.
Okay. Just behind urinary bladder, just behind pubic symphysis, you are finding urinary bladder. Behind urinary bladder, you find uterus, behind which you find rectum, anal canal. And of course, these are the pouches which I already told you. Between uterus and rectum, recto-uterine pouch. Between urinary bladder and uterus, utero-vesical pouch. Okay. So these are the ones which I have covered. I'm not going to elaborate. Okay, now this I wanted to tell you. Now this is actually anterior abdominal wall, and it has been cut in a coronal plane. Coronal plane. Okay, in the coronal plane means the cutting is going on like this way. Okay, now that means pubic symphysis is cut. So once pubic symphysis is cut, okay, what are we finding? We are finding the urinary bladder. See, from the urinary bladder, if you just go up, are you finding there is one fold? This folds I told you, but I found this picture is very good. Till umbilicus, you are finding there is one extension of the thickening of the peritoneal ligament. You call this fold as median umbilical fold. Median umbilical fold is embryological remnant of urachus from where urinary bladder develops. This is the thickening of peritoneum, that is the median umbilical fold. Now,
It is a remnant of what?
urachus, urachus. Okay,
Means what,
median.
ma'am?
It's a embryological remnant from where urinary bladder develops. This is the
Okay.
urinary bladder. During embryology, this system when I discuss, I will tell you. Okay.
Okay.
Urinary system, it will be developing from this urachus. So this urachus remnant is now remaining as median umbilical fold, which is going till umbilicus. What is this further continuation, Meghana? We start reflection of peritoneum from umbilicus only, no beta? What is this?
Ligamentum teres.
Very good. Meghana, ligamentum teres. Ligamentum teres continues as what?
Also.
Excellent.
Falciform.
Very good, beta. Falciform ligament. Okay. Now I am just, this picture was there. I kept Datta's diagram, but this is Netter's atlas picture, which is very good. Okay. Median umbilical ligament. This is medial. I told you Lucknow, London, Elfer. Medial umbilical ligament. This one. Okay. This represents obliterated umbilical artery. Both the sides, it is medial umbilical ligament. Okay. Then. So here at the inferior epigastric vessels, also there is a thickening of peritoneum, which is called as lateral umbilical ligament or lateral umbilical fold, which is the remnant of inferior epigastric vessels. Okay. So now see here, between the median umbilical ligament and medial umbilical ligament, the name of the fossa is, it is above the urinary bladder. That's why you call it as supravesical fossa. This side also, we use the word supravesical fossa. Now, between the medial umbilical ligament and lateral umbilical ligament, we call the name of this fossa as medial inguinal fossa. Medial inguinal fossa. Okay. Lateral to the lateral inguinal ligament, we use the word lateral inguinal fossa. Okay. Lateral inguinal fossa. Okay. Supravesical fossa, medial inguinal fossa, lateral inguinal fossa. Simple. So this is of course the horizontal tracing. Okay. Actually here you have median umbilical ligament, medial umbilical ligaments, lateral umbilical ligaments. Okay. Suprainguinal fossa, medial, and the lateral inguinal fossa. This is stomach. Okay. This whole thing will be the greater sac. This will be the lesser sac. Kidneys, which are retroperitoneal, abdominal aorta, and inferior vena cava. Okay. Nobody will ask you horizontal disposition. Vertical is only important. This is at the level of stomach, in fact. Spleen, then left kidney. This is lesser omentum. Between, because liver and stomach, what is the name of the connection? We know lesser omentum. Okay. See, anteriorly complete area is greater sac. This gray colored area is lesser sac. Okay. But lesser sac I have discussed much in detail. I am not going to discuss again. I gave you all boundaries also. But still boundaries are very much clear. I wish to tell you again. See, lesser sac is nothing but the sac which is found behind the lesser omentum, behind the posterior aspect of the stomach, and between the second and third layers of greater omentum. This gray area is all lesser sac. So anterior wall is formed by the caudate lobe of the liver, then posterior layer of lesser omentum. We know this is lesser omentum, no? From porta hepatis of the liver to the lesser curvature of the stomach. Okay, then this is the posterior inferior surface of the stomach, which I told you clearly when we were discussing stomach. Then between the second and third layers, whatever this, of course, only the posterior aspect of the second layer forms the anterior wall of lesser sac. Lokesh, are you understanding, beta?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So this is the anterior layer of lesser sac. Okay. Then now coming to the posterior wall of the lesser sac. So behind we will have, what is this? We know, like behind left lobe we will have left kidney, left suprarenal gland, then anterior surface of pancreas, and we know like this is transverse colon, then this becomes the transverse mesocolon. Okay. Then this antero-superior surface of the transverse colon and the third layer of greater omentum. This forms the posterior wall of lesser sac. Lesser sac is important 5 marks question beta. Okay, I'm repeating. So obviously behind the left lobe of the liver we will have left kidney with left suprarenal gland, roughly this point. Okay, as you continue, we know this is pancreas, no? So the anterior surface of the body of pancreas, we know this is transverse colon, upper layer of the transverse mesocolon, anterior superior surface of the transverse colon. Okay, then third layer of the greater omentum. Okay, whole of this line is nothing but the posterior wall of lesser sac. Okay. So what is this? Upper margin of the lesser sac is bound by this lobe of the liver, which is caudate lobe. Okay. So below we have this transverse colon. Okay. So that is the right free margin. I told you the greater omentum will end here to continue as transverse mesocolon, isn't it? So right margin is actually deficient. We know like it is nothing but an opening. Okay, this I told you very well. I'm not going to repeat now. Okay, epiploic foramen. Okay, now see, lesser sac, after knowing the boundaries, all these things were not covered, because of which again I thought I should review this. See, subdivisions of lesser sac, whatever vestibule word is written here, this is the area what we have lesser sac, that is behind the stomach, below the liver. Okay, like all this area. Now see here, we have certain extensions of this lesser sac which are actually called as recesses. In the lung also, if you remember, I told you, wherever we have extra space, like costodiaphragmatic recess, costomediastinal recess, these are the words we have used, isn't it? Similarly, this lesser sac also has certain extensions. Okay, if it is extending superiorly, okay, towards the ligamentum venosum, what we have seen on the posterior aspect of the liver, I have shown you in my previous lectures. Okay, that means the posterior aspect of the liver, if it is extending, you call it as the superior recess. Okay, and its extension downwards is actually called as the inferior recess. Towards the left side, we know we have pancreas, and in the tail of pancreas we have spleen. So extension of this lesser sac towards the spleen, you call it as splenic recess. So how many recesses, how many free areas we are finding? 3. Superior recess is towards the posterior aspect of the liver. Inferior recess will be towards the coils of intestines. Splenic recess will be towards the spleen. Okay. So now between the superior and inferior recess, there will be one line of imaginary arbitrary partition, which is actually produced by 2 folds. Okay. So what are these 2 folds? One fold is extending between the stomach and pancreas. Where are the pancreas found? If you cut the stomach, if you remove the stomach, then only you will see pancreas. That means on the posterior aspect of pancreas, on the posterior aspect of stomach, we see pancreas, isn't it? See, we have lifted the stomach. Now can you see these are the pancreas? So here you are, see, this whole thing is the lesser sac. So here we will find one fold, here we will find one fold. Okay, that is. Now see here. So now this is nothing but right gastropancreatic fold extending between the stomach and pancreas. Okay, this is left gastropancreatic fold. Okay, these are the folds of peritoneum which are found behind the stomach. That means between the stomach and pancreas, these two folds are there which are dividing the lesser sac into two areas. Above these arbitrary lines you call it as superior recess, below you call it as inferior recess. Is it clear?
Mm.
So if you just consider this as the line of attachment, above is the superior recess and below is the inferior recess, okay, of the lesser sac. Now apart from this, don't read any of this thing. We will try to understand the arrows which are shown here. Now see here, what is this organ? We have liver. What is this? Stomach. Location. Keep naming. What is the name of this area, Lokesh?
Duodenum, ma'am. First
Very
part,
good, beta.
duodenum.
Excellent. What are these coils? Very less though.
Jejunum, ileum.
Excellent. Okay. What is this?
Colon,
Ascending colon?
ascending colon, transverse colon, descending colon,
Sigmoid colon?
sigmoid colon.
Rectum, anal canal. Now see here, so many arrows are shown. That means what? Here also we have certain peritoneal areas. Okay. So once you understand the labelings, now we will try. See, greater sac is divided by this transverse colon. This I told you into supra and infracolic compartments in my previous class. Okay. Below, we know like here we have a partition that is diaphragm. Below diaphragm, we have spaces which are called as subphrenic spaces. Subphrenic space, okay, that lies between the diaphragm. Diaphragm is a very big hanging. Okay, it's like a dome, like an umbrella. Okay, so between the diaphragm and transverse colon and transverse mesocolon, all these areas are for the spaces below the diaphragm. You call them as subphrenic recesses. On the right side, you call it as right subphrenic recess, left subphrenic recess. Okay, and right subphrenic recess can be also actually called as above liver. No, you can also call it as suprahepatic recess. Okay, that is between the diaphragm and the liver. From here only you will see the continuation of falciform ligament. Okay, so you remember this line, transverse line. Above whatever area is there is the supracolic compartment. Below transverse colon whatever we have is infracolic compartment. What is this line of attachment, Ritika? Meghana? Fan shaped fold of peritoneum. This is the line of attachment. Just now I told you. Ritika? What is the fold of peritoneum which is suspending the coils of small intestine? Very good.
Mesentery.
Mesentery. Now with the help of mesentery, again, just now I told you, 15 centimeters long attached margin of mesentery. Isn't it, Lokesh? L2.
Yes, ma'am.
From L2 it will extend to the right sacroiliac joint. Just now I told you. The same mesentery is shown here. So with the help of mesentery, again the infracolic compartment we are dividing into two. Right supramesenteric, which is on the right side, left inframesenteric. This is down now, that's why. Right supramesenteric and left inframesenteric. Okay. So this is above transverse colon is supracolic compartment. Okay. Now we have recesses around the liver also. So this is this above arrow, you call it as this recess is above, which is extending towards the left side, that is left suprahepatic recess. Okay, left anterior suprahepatic space. Okay, here you have, that means when you do dissection and when you try to insert your hands will be going just below the diaphragm. You can see that space. Okay, then this area is towards the right side. Okay, that is the right suprahepatic recess. Okay.
Ma'am, so all these arrows are only recesses, ma'am. The blue arrows are.
Blue arrows, red arrows, all these. This is just now I told you above mesentery, below mesentery, no?
Yes,
Right superior and below you have left inferior. All these are, this is right paracolic gutter. This is left paracolic gutter. Ascending colon, descending colon. All these arrows are indicating where, that means peritoneum is such a big space, where all these abdominal visceral organs can freely move. Okay, that is. So this very good picture, isn't it? Falciform ligament, ligamentum teres, coronary ligaments. So here we have the spaces. To be more specific, phrenic means just below diaphragm. Right anterior subphrenic space, you should check here. Okay. Left anterior subphrenic space. Right posterior subphrenic space. You can also call it as right subhepatic space. Okay. So infrahepatic means what? Below liver also you will find this space between the transverse colon. Okay. So we have, see, this one, hepatorenal pouch, this one, this big arrow between the left kidney and left colic flexure, isn't it? So all these are recesses. Okay. These are, what are these? Gutters. Infracolic compartments. Right paracolic gutter. Lift this coil of intestine, you will see empty space here, lateral to the ascending colon. Okay, it communicates with the hepatorenal recess of the pelvic cavity. In case if there is any infection here, because of these free spaces, infection can easily spread to other parts of the peritoneal cavity. This is left paracolic gutter, lateral to the descending colon. Okay, here you are finding there is one ligament which we discussed previously, phrenico-colic. Phrenic means diaphragm. From the diaphragm to the left colic flexure is the phrenico-colic. So if this is thickening is there, actually the infection spread is checked. It cannot easily spread. Okay. So this is the right mesenteric sinus. Sinus means, again, for pericardium we have used the word sinus. Recess or sinus is that nothing but an extra space only. Okay. So right mesenteric sinus is this. Okay, triangular space lies between, this is the root of the mesentery, ascending colon, and right 2/3 of the transverse mesocolon. Okay, between this area, whatever you are finding is right mesenteric sinus. Okay, I'm repeating, nothing but it's a triangular space lying between, see, this is the root of mesentery, then ascending colon, and the right 2/3 of transverse colon. Whatever space is enclosed, what do we call it as? Right mesenteric sinus. Similarly, here also there is one space which is left mesenteric sinus. Again, this is between the root of mesentery, then right 1/3 of the transverse colon, transverse mesocolon, then descending colon, all this area, whatever you have. Okay. So now you see the arrow. This space, that is left mesenteric sinus, it is becoming continuous with the pelvic cavity. Even left paracolic gutter, that is also becoming continuation with pelvic cavity. So that means if there is any abdominal infection, because there is a communication, the infection can easily spread from the abdominal cavity, it can spread to the pelvic cavity. Is that clear? Please stop me if you are not understanding. Now, duodenal recesses. Now, yesterday we have studied so nicely. See, this fourth part of duodenum means what? We have duodenojejunal flexure, isn't it? So, around the duodenum also we have so many empty spaces, extensions, recesses. Okay. If you find the extension above, you call it as superior duodenal recess. All are very close to the duodenojejunal flexure. There are actually 4 pockets like, where the difficulty with these recesses is there you can see extra fluid can accumulate. If there is any infection, they act as potential spaces where the fluid can accumulate. Okay. So above this, the duodenojejunal flexure, you have the superior duodenal recess. Below this we have inferior. On either side always we use the word paraduodenal recess. Para. Okay. Then retro means behind the duodenum. Behind the Behind the fourth part of the duodenum also we have one pocket where free space is available. You call it as retroduodenal recess. So how many duodenal recesses are there? How many? How many we are finding? 4 in number. Superior, inferior, para and retro. Is
Retro.
that clear? It can be 3 marks question, beta. Duodenal recesses. Superior duodenal recess, inferior duodenal recess. Para means on either side of the duodenum. Retro means behind the fourth part of the duodenum. Retroduodenal recess. Okay. So all these are pocket-like pouches of peritoneum. Potential spaces these are. Okay. Similarly, with like around the cecum. Cecum is the first part of large intestine, we told, isn't it? From the cecum on, we have this blind pouch which is called as appendix. Okay. Now we know the ileum is opening into the cecum. That is the ileocecal junction. Okay. So here also we have certain vascular folds. Okay. Mesentery, you know, like attached margin of mesentery, I told you it is going up to the right sacroiliac joint. That is the extension of mesentery here. Okay. So why it is called as vascular fold? Because it will be enclosing the distribution of blood vessels. Okay. Now between these peritoneal folds, you are finding again empty spaces. 2 arrows are shown between these 2 peritoneal folds. Okay. So these are actually called as cecal recesses. Okay. So above you call it as superior cecal recess, below you call inferior cecal. And if you lift the cecum and check behind, if you suppose this is cecum, you are lifting and you are checking behind also you are finding. That means you should pass your hand from here, lift it and check behind. You call it as retrocecal recess. Okay. So folds of peritoneum close to the cecum produce 3 peritoneal recesses. Superior ileocecal, inferior ileocecal and retrocecal recess. This can be also again 3 marks question. Hope you are understanding.
Ma'am,
Huh.
can you please open that duodenal recesses? Sorry, not duodenal. Yeah, duodenum only. Can you please show that?
Yeah.
Ma'am, where are these superior duodenal recesses are actually present, ma'am? Like, can you show it in the left side of the diagram?
This left side you mean to say, right?
No, ma'am, that
See,
this
first,
side.
see, ligament of Treats, do you remember from yesterday's
Yes,
lecture?
ma'am.
That
Yes,
was
ma'am.
extending from right crus. That means your right
Yes, ma'am.
crus will be arbitrarily here. Okay?
Okay.
And you are moving here. So that means, see here, this is the third, that our C fold is like this. Okay?
Mm.
Whole C is not shown here. Okay? So duodenum has first part. Okay? Then it has second part, horizontal. Then we have third part. Then we have then you see the fourth part will be very small, no? First, second, third, and this is the fourth part. So around this duodenum, so this is the superior duodenal recess. That means you are now taking the fourth part as a landmark, and then you are checking above, below, on the side, and behind.
Okay.
You are taking fourth part of the duodenum as landmark, and then you are checking for the empty spaces, extensions.
Okay.
Above, below, on the side and behind.
Okay.
Okay, above is superior, below is inferior, on the side is para and behind is retro duodenal recess. Okay, beta?
So we're using fourth part as the reference.
Fourth part is the reference.
Okay.
Okay? Then.
Yes.
This did you understand? Here mesentery as a reference.
Okay.
Okay, between the mesenteric attachment only you have 2 pockets, 2 spaces. Okay, that is the superior ileocecal, inferior ileocecal, behind the cecum retrocecal recess. Okay.
Yes.
Now that finishes what all I was little not covered in our peritoneum. So coming to the nerve supply of peritoneum, whatever nearby nerves are there from superior to inferior aspect, starting with the diaphragm, no? Phrenic nerve is very close, intercostal nerves are very close, T7 to T12, subcostal and all. Lumbar nerves are very close, obturator nerve is going and supplying in the pelvic cavity. We know parietal peritoneum is pain sensitive. isn't it?
Yes.
Visceral peritoneum is supplied by autonomic nerves. That means that sympathetic chain, what we will be running, the lumbar and sacral sympathetic chain. Okay. Now coming to the applied aspects. So under the applied aspects, we have ascites, paracentesis. I will elaborate all these words. Okay. Now see, whenever there is any infection, everything I will elaborate, but only names are given here. Paracentesis, we will elaborate. Okay. Laparoscopy, referred pain, dialysis, subphrenic abscess. See, ascites. So if there is any infection or in case of liver failure, when liver is not functioning properly, you will see there will be accumulation of fluid in the peritoneal cavity. Okay, excessive accumulation of peritoneal fluid within the peritoneal cavity is actually hydroperitoneum. Mostly we will see with cirrhosis. I told you liver failure. Okay, in case of cirrhosis, liver will not be able to synthesize plasma proteins, and we know plasma proteins are Meghana, you want to ask something, beta? You raised hand. Okay. Plasma proteins we know are synthesized, albumin, globulin are synthesized from liver. Okay, so when liver is not working in case of cirrhosis, in alcoholic cases we generally see whole of the parenchymal tissue of the liver will be replaced with fibrous tissue. So no cells, no hepatic cells, no synthesis of, all functions are gone including the synthesis of plasma proteins. So whenever plasma proteins are not there in the blood, osmotic pressure will not be maintained, oncotic pressure will not be maintained, because of which from the blood vessels the plasma will be leaking and it will be accumulating in the peritoneal cavity. That condition is actually cirrhosis. Okay, so in case of cirrhosis you will find ascites, full accumulation of fluid in the abdomen. In case of tuberculosis, in case of cancers also we will see the leakage of the, like, lot of accumulation of fluid in the peritoneal cavity. Okay, so in such cases, you remember we did thoracentesis. Ritika, you asked me pleural tap thoracentesis, is it same? Isn't it? Similarly, there is a procedure which is called as paracentesis, where you are just inserting the needle and with the help of a drainage tube you are collecting the excess fluid in a bag. Okay, so this is abdominal paracentesis. In case of abdominal paracentesis, we should take, see, umbilicus is, if you take the umbilicus as a point, just take 2 to 3 centimeters below the umbilicus, we can insert the needle, or 2 to 4 centimeters lateral, superior medial. You remember we have anterior superior iliac spine, just superior medial, like 2 to 4 centimeters superior medial to the anterior superior iliac spine also. All x are the points where we can insert the needle and we can collect the fluid. Okay, in case of ascites. Now I told you which is the point where internal hernias can take place. Internal hernias.
Bile duct.
No, beta. Imad, which is the point where commonly internal hernias can take place? Ritika? What is the point from where the greater sac is communicating with lesser sac?
Epiploid foramen.
Very good. We know epiploid foramen is a passage where arrow is shown here. Okay.
Foramen of Winslow.
Foramen of Winslow. That means this is a hole where the anything can herniate, and from here, from this picture, you can see the loops of large intestines can also herniate. This hernia is actually called as internal abdominal hernia. Loops of intestines may enter into the peritoneal pouches or recesses and they get strangulated. I'll show you the pictures, the meaning of strangulation. They can get coiled. Okay. Then sometimes, suppose the severe ulcer, yesterday in stomach class, day before yesterday's class, we have seen gastric ulcer. Yesterday's class, we have seen peptic ulcer. So suppose if the ulcer is perforating, don't you think contents of stomach will fall into peritoneal cavity?
Yes.
Yes? Yes, of course. Okay, so perforation of gastric ulcer. So posterior wall perforation. So all lesser sac will get infected. Okay, so after some time you will see it may get tissue may form and it may get obliterated also, but if it is closed, adhesions may develop at epiploic foramen. Okay, so in such cases, if there is any leakage of contents of stomach into the peritoneal cavity due to the perforated gastric ulcer, obviously again we have to drain, like we have seen in case of ascites, a drainage tube was inserted, isn't it? So here drainage tube, preferably we have to pass through the epiploic foramen, that is through the lesser omentum. That's the easy way to enter into lesser omentum, isn't it? The right free margin of the lesser omentum, we have a hole already, a ready-made hole, isn't it? That is the epiploic foramen, through which you can easily enter the lesser sac and drain the fluid. Okay. Now see here, peritoneal abscess. You asked me why so many arrows, ma'am, you asked. See, if there is any infection, so infection can spread anywhere. Okay, from pelvic cavity into abdominal cavity, from abdominal cavity into pelvic cavity, and vice versa. Anywhere, isn't it? So hepatorenal space, we found it here, isn't it? So it's the most common. Suppose if there is any infection in the hepatorenal space or Morrison's pouch, you will see the infection can easily spread below the diaphragm. Okay, and you call it as subphrenic abscess. Abscess means pus formation. Okay, and when the person is lying in this position, you will see the most dependent parts are these areas, isn't it, where the pus is accumulating. Rectouterine pouch also, I told you in my previous class, Douglas pouch, that is also the most dependent part, rectovesical pouch. So the most like in order to drain, this posture of the body will be more better because the person will be allowed to sit. Okay, 45 degrees angle. Okay, so peritoneal abscesses different, like needle has to get, we should insert a needle into the what is the name of this pouch? Douglas pouch, isn't it? What is another name? Rectouterine pouch. Rectouterine pouch. Okay, so that is, it has to be drained in this way. Now, sometimes if there is any infection in the peritoneum, that in fact always itis means what? Infection leading to inflammation. So there will be pain around the site of infection. It may be due to tuberculosis, or tuberculosis in the lung is also spreading to GIT also, to the reproductive organs also. So dangerous it is. So in such cases, you will see rebound tenderness. I'll show in my next slide. What is that? You will see all abdominal organs. If you just palpate the abdomen, the person's abdomen feels so much rigid. Okay, like cardboard rigidity. You will not even able to perceive any intestinal sounds. Percussion. It's very much no sound is felt. Okay, now this is rebound tenderness. That means pressure is applied on the abdominal wall with single finger over the site of inflammation. When the pressure is removed, when you withdraw your finger, abdominal wall rebounds, resulting in severe pain where there is infection. Okay, that point is actually called as rebound tenderness. Okay. Then see here, just now
If
you
we
have...
remove the finger, ma'am, one doubt. If we remove the finger, there is pain, ma'am.
Yeah, because so much infection is there, no? If you touch also, even if you don't, as soon as you start touching only, patient will not let you touch the abdomen at all. So much inflammation will be there, so much pain will be there. Okay.
Okay.
It's so very, very tender on touch. Okay. So that is. Now see here, I told you infection from hepatorenal pouch, that is Morrison's pouch, can also go to which recess? Below diaphragm. What is the name of the recess called? Subdiaphragmatic recess. Okay, the infection can spread to subdiaphragmatic recess. So obviously, so if there is any perforation in the stomach, or if there is any perforation in the intestine, or if there is any infection in the Morrison's pouch, gradually you will see there will be collection of air just below the diaphragm, which we can appreciate in the X-rays. This condition you call it as pneumoperitoneum, accumulation of air in the peritoneal cavity. Pneumothorax means accumulation of air in the thoracic cage. Similarly, pneumoperitoneum means accumulation of air. Basically, we have fluid, peritoneal fluid. Because of these perforations, we may also see air entering into this spaces. Okay, air under the right dome of diaphragm. You are seeing. Okay. So laparoscopy is a specific procedure where we are inserting the laparoscopic tube to be more specific. Previously, large incision, we used to appreciate the surgeons. Array, so great, such big incision, the surgeon, very big surgery the surgeon has done. But nowadays mentality is small hole, view through the your system, you view what is, explore the abdomen in your system through this camera and check where exactly the infection is and insert a cautery instrument exactly where you're supposed to, and then do the surgery and remove whatever infection is there inside. That is laparoscopy. Through small laparoscopic camera, you are exploring the abdomen and performing the surgery. That is the laparoscopy. Okay. So laparotomy is when you cut open the abdomen. That is laparotomy. Okay. Surgeons repeatedly every day they will be doing this. Meghana's father is a surgeon. So we'll ask him at the end of abdomen to share some videos with us. Okay, beta. See, greater omentum is the policeman of abdomen. I already told you, beta, because it is spreading the infection. See, referred pain. This word you already know. That means pain is felt away from the point of origin. So here this picture will help us to understand few referred pains coming from peritoneum. So suppose if it comes from the diaphragm or gallbladder, it is basically felt on the right shoulder. Okay, diaphragm here also. Esophagus pain is felt over the sternal area. Heart pain is felt over the left thoracic cage, and also it will radiate along the left arm because they all share the same nerve supply, dermatomal rule. Okay, so all these are pictures which help us to understand this referred pain. Okay, appendix pain is felt around the umbilicus. Ovary pain is felt between the urinary bladder and the, that means pubic symphysis and umbilicus. In between this point, ovary pain is felt. Okay, like that. These are referred pains. Now, we can actually use peritoneal fluid for the purpose of dialysis also. This is peritoneal dialysis. We know dialysis usually we undertake if there is any renal failure, isn't it? So, but instead of going, suppose in some people taking the renal dialysis, it may not be safe, the body may not be cooperating. In such conditions, we just insert a peritoneal dialysate. Okay, it's a fluid which is going inside and which is absorbing all waste material which is present in the peritoneal cavity. Okay, waste products cross the semi-permeable membrane, and finally the dialysate with waste products is drained from this potential space and it is collected in drainage bag. So instead of renal dialysis, we can also go with peritoneal dialysis if there is any complication with renal dialysis. Okay. So subphrenic abscess, that means infection, if it is there in the peritoneal cavity, it can spread anywhere. So this is right subphrenic abscess, left subphrenic abscess. Below the liver, you call it as subhepatic abscess. Okay. So that is all about this. So to continue our thing, so I will also share something else with you. Okay, then we will continue tomorrow. I will talk about mesentery a little more in detail in tomorrow's class along with jejunum and ileum. Okay.